Formula One has always been a sport where the interests of the team can clash with the ambitions of individual drivers. At times, this has led to some of the most controversial moments in the sport's history. One of the most famous examples came at the 2010 German Grand Prix, when Ferrari issued a team order that many saw as undermining the very idea of fair racing. It was a decision that split opinion, sparked outrage, and ultimately forced Formula One to change the way it dealt with team orders forever. But to understand the controversy at Hockenheim in 2010, we need to step back and look at the wider context of that season. The 2010 Formula One season was one of the most competitive in modern history. Heading into the German Grand Prix, there were 5 drivers genuinely in contention for the championship: Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button, Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel, and Fernando Alonso. Ferrari had started the year strongly, with Alonso winning on his debut for the team in Bahrain and Massa finishing second. But as the season developed, Red Bull and McLaren had pulled ahead, and Ferrari found themselves needing a strong result to keep Alonso in the fight. The point situation made the dynamic clear. Hamilton led the championship on 145 points, with Button on 133, Webber on 128, and Vettel on 121. Alonso, Ferrari's star signing and perceived team leader, was further back on 98 points. Massa had 67, and while mathematically still in contention, few saw him as a realistic title challenger. This context is important. From Ferrari's perspective, their hopes for a title were heavily pinned on Alonso. But for fans, and especially for Massa, the story was not as simple. Felipe Massa's position in 2010 carried huge emotional weight. Just a year earlier, at the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix, he had suffered a life-threatening accident when a spring from another car struck his helmet. His return to Formula One was an achievement in itself, and Hockenheim 2010 fell on the anniversary weekend of that accident. For Massa, running at the front of the race represented more than just points. It was a statement that he had come back from the brink. This made what unfolded later even more significant. Qualifying saw Vettel on pole position, with Alonso second and Massa third. At the start, Vettel aggressively moved across to block Alonso, and in doing so left the door open for Massa to slip through into the lead. For Ferrari, it was almost the perfect scenario, both cars ahead of Vettel, with Massa leading. Through the early stages, Massa controlled the race. Alonso remained close behind, and while there were moments where he looked quicker, Massa was holding his own and managing the pace. To many, this was the fair outcome of racing. Massa had made the better start, and he was leading on merit. But for Ferrari, the race was not just about that afternoon. It was about the championship, and from their perspective, Alonso in first place would have been far more valuable than Massa. By lap 40, Ferrari were running comfortably 1-2, but the question within the team was simple. Should they let Massa take the victory, or should they intervene to boost Alonso's title chances? There were 2 clear sides to this debate. On one hand, supporters of Ferrari's decision argue that Alonso was faster at key points in the race. His pace in clear air had been stronger, and he had been applying pressure to Massa throughout. For a team fighting to stay in the title battle, maximizing points for their lead driver was a rational, strategic move. If Alonso had any chance of closing the gap to Hamilton, this was the moment to make it happen. On the other hand, critics argued that Massa had earned the right to fight for victory. He had taken the lead through a brilliant start, defended it cleanly, and shown he could handle the pressure. Taking the win away from him not only undermined sporting integrity, but also humiliated a driver who had been loyal to Ferrari for years. With so many races still remaining in the season, why not let them race and settle it on track? This was the dilemma that set the stage for one of Formula One's most infamous radio messages. On lap 47, Massa's race engineer Rob Smedley came over the radio with a line that would become one of the most replayed in modern Formula One history.
Hey, so, Fernando is faster than you. Can you confirm you understood that message?
The phrasing left little doubt as to the intent. This was not a coded strategy discussion. It was an instruction, albeit thinly veiled, for Massa to yield the lead. And on the next lap, that is exactly what happened. Exiting the hairpin, Massa hesitated on the throttle, allowing Alonso to slip through into the lead. The pass was not the result of an on-track battle, but a clear handover. For Alonso and Ferrari, this was job done. For Massa, it was a bitter moment. And for fans, it was a flashback to one of the most unpopular incidents in modern Formula One. 8 years earlier, At the Austrian Grand Prix in 2002, Ferrari had issued team orders for Rubens Barrichello to move aside for Michael Schumacher. The backlash was immense. Fans booed on the podium, politicians in Europe condemned the manipulation, and the FIA responded by introducing a regulation banning team orders that interfered with race results. That rule was still in place in 2010, which is why Ferrari's actions at Hockenheim caused such outrage. When Alonso crossed the line to win and Massa followed him home in second, the crowd responded with boos. The post-race press conference was uncomfortable. Alonso insisted he had been faster and deserved the victory. Massa, when asked directly, maintained he was simply doing his job for the team.
The clearest team order I've ever seen.
Ferrari's been fined $100,000 for breaking Formula One rules at the German Grand Prix today.
They were clear team orders, and everybody accepts those.
It was clearly unlawful, and for me it was theft.
Felipe Massa allowed his teammate Fernando Alonso to overtake him and eventually win.
Ferrari should be ashamed of themselves.
Team orders are banned. Is that what all drivers know?
Yep. Every team up and down this pit lane gives team orders, and anyone who says they don't is lying.
We didn't have team orders in the race.
Can you confirm you understood that message?
Especially when they've got a team apologising to the drivers.
No, there are no team orders.
The apology is just because I'm sorry that's happened. I'm sorry he's got past.
He deserves an Oscar for what he's just delivered there. An Oscar.
I was surprised when I saw Felipe having a problem. I thought that was a gear problem.
I was struggling on the hard tires, and that's is the direction.
Good lad. Just stick with it now. Sorry.
Team order is not a problem. The problem is the most interest of the team, and that's it.
We work for Ferrari. Ferrari pay us at the end of the month, and we try to score 43 points for the team.
Alonso obviously gained a lot of points in this race. I can't wait to see the overtaking move with Felipe.
Did you decide to let Fernando pass?
Yes.
You have to do it in a way that is maybe nice and maybe not too obvious.
You know, it's wrong. It's wrong for the sport.
There's only one target, and that's winning the championship.
If you'd won today, would it have changed?
I would have been happy.
Fernando is faster than you.
Reactions across the paddock and media were sharply divided. Supporters of Ferrari's call pointed to the championship standings. They argued that Massa was not realistically in contention, while Alonso was. With McLaren and Red Bull both so strong that year, Ferrari needed to maximize every opportunity. Allowing Massa to win might have been popular, but strategically it could have cost them in the bigger picture. Critics, however, saw it differently. They argued that it went against the very spirit of racing. The rule against team orders existed precisely to prevent such outcomes, and Ferrari had openly flouted it. Beyond that, many felt it was unfair to Massa personally. On the anniversary of his near-fatal accident, he had been denied what would have been one of the most emotional victories of his career. The FIA fined Ferrari $100,000 for the incident, but crucially, they did not change the race result. Alonso kept the win, Massa kept second, and the point stood. For many, this highlighted the weakness of the regulation. If team orders could be punished financially but not reversed in sporting terms, did the rule really mean anything? That question became even more relevant later that year, when the FIA announced the team orders ban would be dropped altogether for 2011. From that point forward, teams were free to manage their drivers as they saw fit. The fallout from Hockenheim had effectively forced the sport to accept that team orders were part of Formula One's reality. For Alonso, the victory at Hockenheim helped keep him in the championship battle, one he would take all the way to the final round in Abu Dhabi, before losing out to Sebastian Vettel. Supporters of Ferrari's call argue that without that win, Alonso might not even have been in contention. For Massa, however, the incident marked a turning point. Many saw it as confirmation that he would never again be Ferrari's #1 driver. His role had been defined, loyal support act to Alonso, and for Formula One, the controversy forced the sport to confront the issue of team orders. Were they unsporting manipulations, or simply the reality of a team-based competition where both cars represent the same interests? Hockenheim 2010 remains one of the most infamous races of modern Formula One, not because of a dramatic crash, a scandalous piece of technology, or a moment of individual brilliance, but because of a single radio message. Fernando is faster than you. For some, it was a logical, if unpopular, decision that reflected the championship realities of the moment. For others, it was a betrayal of the principles of competition and an embarrassment for the sport. In truth, it was both, a decision that made sense strategically, but one that damaged Ferrari's reputation, undermined Massa's status, and forced Formula One to accept the uncomfortable reality of team orders.